a registered apprenticeship, what is it? A registered apprenticeship is an employer-driven program, an employer-driven training program that combines on-the-job learning with classroom training. This allows the registered apprentice to get a paycheck from day one. They're your employee. And for it is one of the 5 recommendations for the Future Ready Iowa initiative to get 70% of Iowans to have an education or training beyond high school by 2025. So these are our experts up here today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and kind of give a little bit about what their role is for their registered apprenticeship program. I'll start, Jerry.
Sure. My name is Jerry Orr, and I work for Hawkeye Community College. I'm the Trade and Industry Coordinator. Oversee Hawkeye's apprenticeship programs. We have apprenticeship programs in 4 different occupations, 5 actually, but I oversee 4 of them. Trade, kind of in the trades, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and carpentry. So we work with over 80 businesses. We have approximately 180 registered apprentices that are coming to Hawkeye for their classroom training.
My name's Igor. Hello, everybody. I own a small IT company in Des Moines, and I helped create, with the help of Technology Association of Iowa, a help desk technician apprenticeship, essentially a IT apprenticeship that wasn't available, didn't exist before. I saw the need and I reached out and we created, and we have currently an apprentice in that spot has been hired 2 years ago. He's got 1 more year to go.
And I'm Tim Deesberg. I'm retired from the Department of Corrections after 36 years. So the last 3 years, I set up an apprenticeship program within the Department of Corrections, and we set it up in Animal State Penitentiary. It did so well, we took it statewide in 2015, and now we're in all 9 correctional facilities. We have 22 different apprenticeship occupations that we currently have 332 participants today. Keeps growing. Women in this program has increased, it's tripled since May of 18, which is excellent. And then we've also turned out 155 of incarcerated individuals into the journeyman in their field. So right now it's looking very well. The recidivism rate is quite high in the United States at around 68.7%. Iowa's somewhere in that 34, 35%. And the individuals who have finished the program have been released into returning citizen status. Early, we don't have really good evidence base, but early just looking at it, what they've done and kind of followed the people that have left, we're less than 10% recidivism rate. So, so far it's working very well.
I'm just sitting here trying to figure out how he's retired when he looks this young already, so I went wrong. Thank you. Has me befuddled, but I'm Jeff Frost, and I'm the Executive Director of Professional and Technical Education for the Waterloo Schools. Basically, my position, I'm in charge of all things career and technical education, and I'm also in charge of our Waterloo Career Center, which you heard mentioned a few times in there. I also oversee counseling, and I know I see a couple of my counselors back there, so glad to see them here. And I'm excited about this opportunity to discuss for us what will be the pre-quality apprenticeship model that we're exploring with Lacey and Jerry and other people in the room here.
How many of you think that you understand registered apprenticeship? You know what industries could play a part and play a role in registered apprenticeship? Only one? Wow. 2, 3?
It's not fair.
It's okay. We'll count you in. So how many of you think that registered apprenticeship is just in our traditional skill trades? Okay, that's 1. Good. Thank you for being honest. So it did get started in the skill trades, but we're going to learn more about expanding into different industries such as IT, advanced manufacturing, and healthcare. Igor, tell us why you started a registered apprenticeship program for Grand Consulting.
How much time does everybody have? I'm an immigrant. It starts in a weird place, so I'll get there. I'm an immigrant. I immigrated to the United States in '99, so almost 98 actually, 20 years now. Wow, didn't even realize. I'm from Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia. My family lived in Germany 7 years prior to moving to the United States. In Germany, in other European countries too, but just speaking from personal experience, in Germany, the apprenticeships track for high school students and as an educational track is just as a valid track as college education. So kids actually there decide as they're going into high school whether they're going to pursue education in college or university or pursue a skilled trade or a job that you can achieve by going the apprenticeship track. So you start either a technical high school or an apprenticeship high school, and you can essentially get into a valid job, not just using college, but also going the apprenticeship track. And when I moved here, the system felt pretty broken for some. It felt like either you went to college or that was it. Your choices for education and good jobs weren't there. So when I was in a position to do something about it, I just decided, all right, I'll create one for my industry specifically, and hopefully I'll serve as an example to other industries and other companies in town that this might be a valid choice. So here we are.
So what benefits have you seen having a registered apprenticeship program within your company?
Not yet. We're pretty early in the program. The biggest benefit really is being able to that I'm seeing that in the long term is we're going to be able to tackle diversity. The IT field is really a white male dominated field, and that felt pretty broken as well. Our first apprentice was somebody that normally wouldn't have had or been able to get their foot in the door. He was working for Hy-Vee in customer service, essentially no IT experience at all, but super smart individual. We were able to bring him into our organization and kind of teach him how we work, how we interact with our clients. And once he's done with the program, we're going to be able to hire him in this full-time position. Are you being trained up? Are you knowing the processes and procedures? Hopefully he's going to stay with us for years, many years to come. I don't think that it would have been as easy to get an employee like that hired. There isn't a college degree, maybe CS or MIS, where I could hire somebody and have them hit the ground running. I still feel like I have to train them for 6 months to a year before they can hit their full stride. So I figured if we can train somebody up, and as they're learning, once they're done with the program, we have somebody that can actually do the job. Fantastic.
Igor made a great point. With registered apprenticeship, one of the greatest benefits we're hearing from employers is growing your own. You are actually hiring based upon potential rather than the skills, knowledges, and abilities and doing those checks off on the resume. So think about how low the unemployment rate is. You can actually broaden your pool of candidates to even double to triple the amount of people that you could grow. What message would you provide to any other IT companies, Igor, that are looking or in the audience today?
Please contact me. All right, actually, this is to any industry really. Look at any jobs that can be an apprenticeship. It's usually a job that can be taught by observing. If the person can observe somebody doing the job and be mentored by somebody, that position is a great candidate for a potential apprenticeship. Please create one. The more companies have an apprenticeship and the more different tracts, people observe that they can take, the more of a possibility it becomes for an IT industry to build more and more jobs. So it's kind of like a flywheel, really, that needs to get going. So the more the merrier.
Anybody have a question?
Yeah, sorry to be the dumb guy in the room. So Stacy McCoy, John Deere Waterloo. Can you guys define for me a registered apprenticeship program?
Thank you, I was going to ask.
Yeah, in my mind, we have a very specific apprenticeship program within the context of our Deere UAW labor agreement for skilled trades.
Yep.
And it is registered with the Department of Labor. So when someone completes that program, they are a journeyman industrial electrician, for example. So that's my framework,
Yep.
and I'm feeling like this is something slightly different. So could we please define that so I know what we're talking about? And again, I apologize
No,
for
you're
being the dumb
good.
guy
This is,
in the room.
feel free to ask the questions, because we didn't really know where the education level was going to be with the individuals that were in the room. So with registered apprenticeship, there's 5 different components. You have to have the employer, so all of these individuals that are up here are an employer or what's called an intermediary sponsor, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But basically the employer employs that apprentice from day one. They are a full-time employee and they provide the mentorship. The step 2 is you have on-the-job learning. So you have at least 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning every year of that program. So like Igor said, if you're able to train, mentor, and explain that job, then it could be apprenticeable. There is a list that we go on with the United States Department of Labor to say yes, it is 100% apprenticeable, or how we mold and make the program. But with that on-the-job learning, you have to have a mentor. That's the difference between like an internship or a work-based learning, is that that mentor has to be there with you to ensure that you're doing everything safe, that you're abiding by the rules and regulations, and that you're overall learning how that employer wants you to do a specific task or abilities. The third component is you have what's called related training instruction or classroom instruction. That classroom instruction is 144 hours roundabout. There could be a little bit less or a little bit more for each year of your apprenticeship program. So that actually complements what you're doing on the job. So you're learning from your mentor at that employer, and then you're going to school at the same time, or going to work and then going to school for a week, depending on how you want to make your program. The fourth component is that your wage increases as your skills, abilities, and knowledge increases. So there is steps that you will get an increase along with your program, because as an apprentice, you can actually get paid at least minimum wage, but you're not going to get the same amount of pay as if you were a skilled worker. So that's a benefit for the employer, because you're not going to be paying that 100% wage of that unskilled worker while they're learning. The fifth component, which actually makes it completely different than any other work-based learning, is that national occupational credential at the end. It's a credential that is given by the U.S. Department of Labor, saying that that person is skilled. Just like you were saying, the journeyman, they have their journeyman's card, or they have their journeyman's license, but they have the national occupation credential as well. Does that make sense with the 5 components?
So I'm going to really throw this on its head, because, so Nathan Art, you and I museum. In the museum world, we have an issue with these kids, they don't have the ability to go to grad school, they don't have the money. Is there a way that we could rope I grew up with a lineman in the house, so I'm used to this apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Doing an apprenticeship for undergraduates who can't afford or don't have the ability to go to a master's program, loop that in with a certificate program so they get that experience, they get this that letter at the end, and they can work for a small museum in Iowa and fill that gap that we're starting to see that we need. Is that something that's ever been done or could be done?
So there is some talk about RN to BSN, and that it's not as similar to, because it's not a master's,
Right.
but taking somebody that has a license and then getting them to the BSN, that's going through the National Office of Office of Apprenticeship right now to be approved. That is something that we could talk to the national office, because every time an occupation comes on board, we have to get them approved through the U.S.
Okay.
Department of Labor.
Because I know there's an interest in it. Many of my students don't want to do the master's route. It's not their way, but something like this I think they would love. It'd
We
be a
can,
good fit.
we can talk afterwards and I can get your information, we can see what we can do. Okay.
There has been apprenticeship journeymen in their field gain college credit based on their training that they
Oh, really?
receive from their apprenticeship. So that is, individual colleges will ask you for the transcript.
Okay.
So you give them a full transcript of what they, and I'll give you, for instance, in corrections, we had several of them that knocked off 9 credit hours and pretty much started their first year out because of the training they had in computer operator program. So
Great, thanks.
If I may add too, our personal experience, apprenticeship is not something that's dictated to you from on high. Like there isn't a person up somewhere deciding what all the rules are. There was no help desk apprenticeship offered in Des Moines at all. We actually worked with the technology of Iowa to create essentially the curriculum, the requirements for apprenticeship to complete the program. And so the way we break up our on-the-job training and in-class instruction is we supplement the apprentice's education. So he is actually taking college classes at DMAC for his on-the-job or in-class instruction component, which they're his credits. So like he can apply them to further education or whatever he prefers.
So it all depends on how you mold and make your program as an employer, if they'll receive college credit or not, depending on who is that related training instruction provider. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the Iowa Department of Corrections. Iowa Department of Corrections has implemented a robust registered apprenticeship program throughout the state. Tim, tell us about how IDOC registered apprenticeship program got started.
Well, I worked for Prison Industries for roughly 27 years, and throughout that, working with them and having the privilege of working with individuals 8 hours a day, could see how they grew from maybe a little gang banger at 19 years old coming into a metal fabrication shop and really learning and transforming right in front of me how he became a man and how he got a well-skilled trades under his belt. And we give him a certificate of he worked in this training for 10,000 hours and so on and so forth, and send them on their way and release them. Really wanted to see a credential tied to it. So in 2011, we started working with a career assistant in the U.S. Department of Labor here in Iowa and developed the program. Within the program, we've started 4 occupations in February of 2014. Those 4 occupations were kind of different around the traditional trades like electrician, plumber, HVAC, but we also wanted to do non-traditional, and we threw in a cook apprenticeship and a housekeeper apprenticeship. So that was going so well. In 2015, the director would like to see this program go. Well, I guess between that time, we added 10 more apprenticeships to build up to the 22 we have today. So we were starting to turn out as early as the end of 2014 our first journeyman, because we were able to use the training hours that they had prior to starting the program. So you can go back and create and use some of those training hours, providing it was still in that industry standard what we do today, still within the curriculum, and then they did their curriculum. So we was able to do that. So then in 2015 in July, we went statewide with it. It's an all-night correctional facilities, like I said earlier, and we built up to 22. Some of the 22 are, one of the goals is to try to hit every sector market out there within Department of Corrections. There's many training opportunities within Department of Corrections that we use. Some non-traditional ones, like I said, the cook and the baker, the housekeeping, landscape technician, office manager, screen printer, upholstery. One of the several companies in Des Moines, Monticello, came to us and said, "You guys do textiles. We need somebody to run sewing machine." Nobody runs sewing. Nobody has that anymore. It's an old art that's gone away. So we started the sewing machine operator and sewing machine repair apprenticeship. So And then you get into the painter, and then the big ones that everybody's asking, please, let's get us a welder, let's get us metal fabricators, industrial maintenance, that kind of thing. We added on, not the industrial maintenance yet, because truly we don't have that kind of on-the-job training within corrections in the inside. But that's kind of how it got started and where it's at today, and it's been very well. We've had super success stories. Two of the people who have been released have also received the Iowa Job Honors. I don't know if anybody knows about the Iowa Job Honor, but if you, I invite you to go to iowajobhonor.org organization. Go in there and watch some of them videos of people that have been through the barriers, like Momentum is talked about. But they're true stories from here in Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, I believe, is in there already. And Kyle Horn runs that organization, who is an amazing speaker and helps people with barriers, not only from incarceration, but from other barriers in their lives. So anyway.
So what community impacts can come along with having programs at IROC?
95% of the people that are incarcerated today is going to be released. So that's about 700,000 or 800,000 a year in the United States. 12 to 14 million people in our communities have been returned citizens. So the impact is great because it changes the lives of individuals incarcerated, to change their lives when they get out. It breaks a cycle in a lot of cases with their family. You know, and like I said, the national recidivism rate is 67.8%. Iowa's around 35%, and this program so far has turned out less than 10% recidivism rate. Everybody know what recidivism rate is? Return to prison. So you can see the impact. There's $35,000 a year on average it takes to house an individual in corrections. That's on average. So you get these people to stay out, less taxpayer dollars. The biggest impact, I think, other than they don't go to prison, they don't victimize anybody at their hands. You know, the most important thing to us is the victims. How can we serve the victims best we can? Take these people, train them, give them the skill, keep them out, don't let them victimize so they don't victimize anybody again. That's a big goal in how we do things. So I think it's just been a huge impact, and I think it will increase being an impact in years to come.
How do you think registered apprenticeship plays an important role in Iowa reaching the Future Ready Iowa goal, Tim?
Oh, I think it's absolutely one of the biggest impacts. The one thing about a registered apprenticeship program that people don't know or may not know is it's your program. It's the company's program. 24%, just about 25% of the companies that do not have an apprenticeship program in the United States have a turnover rate of about 25%. Registered apprenticeship programs that are within companies right now run about 6 to 8% turnover rate. You know, you take a look at that and say, if I have 100 people in my company, there's 18 people that I got to train every year. 18 more people I got to train every year. The employees, you know, Momentum had said that they're what they talked about, the best thing for them to do and their steps that they go into, buy into the employees. People want to work for people who want to invest in them. That'll make you work harder, makes you work stronger. I think it's 100% guaranteed. Once they're done with their apprenticeship program, that individual, now the U.S. Department of Labor says it's 100% guaranteed that the people finishing the registered apprenticeship program is 100% trained and skilled in their occupation. So the thing about what I was kind of getting to earlier is it's your program. You set it up with the Department of Labor. You set up the curriculum. You set up the on-the-job training. So if curriculum is good, just send it, and nothing against anybody here, colleges or anything. There's so many different ways to do curriculum. You can do it through a college. You can do your own technical publishing company. You do a self-study program out of Illinois. It has a super They update their books constantly on what the standards are, manufacturing standards are today. So you buy that book, you buy a set of books, say 10 books or 55 bucks, 555 bucks. You can use those for a whole apprenticeship program for a dozen people, all doing tests at the same time. So there's different ways to do it. It's much easier than what you think. It takes less than 2 minutes once you start to learn how to set up a person in the U.S. Department of Labor website. Less than 2 minutes to register that individual. Essentially, you don't do anything on that again until that person leaves or completes. Then you update their stuff when they're done. Easy as that. You keep the records in-house. It's really not a difficult thing. I encourage it
And the
because it's a
employer,
great skill.
and the employer can decide with on-the-job learning task if they are competent or not, or if they need an extra couple weeks for a certain task, because that is your skilled worker. If you don't feel like they've grasped something, you can teach them again.
So what if that skilled worker wants to go elsewhere?
So there is possibility that something outside of the standards of apprenticeship, so that's the actual agreement with the U.S. Department of Labor, that you can actually do a contract with that worker to say, if we're going to invest in you, you can give us a year or two back. So that's something that you would have to work out with your legal department.
So if I go to college and I get a degree, there's an understanding behind that, in a sense. But with different organizations having their own criteria, like I'm a high school counselor, so
Yep.
I'm starting to confuse myself even more with apprenticeships. But my understanding with electricians and plumbers and stuff, now I'm hearing something different, I guess, where if every business is able to create, in a way, their own curriculum and the way they deliver it, if I work for you, that's different. But what am I going to have to be able to go somewhere else and prove that I have the skills? Are those other businesses going to hire me on a certificate from some other company?
Yep.
Through
I can try and answer that. As an employer, if I had an applicant that had completed a help desk apprenticeship program that existed in town from another company, if I had an applicant from that, to choose between that and somebody that maybe had a CS degree or a MIS degree, I would choose a help desk technician apprentice any day, just because I know they've had the relevant experience. A lot of the work is the same, so it would not make a difference to me. So even if that individual company had set up a different standard or help desk apprenticeship, I would know that they've had experiences with clients. A lot of clients have similar needs, and a lot of jobs in the IT field or that specific position are very similar if you were taking care of a specific infrastructure. So for me, it would not make a difference.
So are employers moving to that direction? So instead of always advertising, you have to have a 4-year degree or you have to have a 2-year degree, like, is it?
I'm trying to
is
make it that.
apprenticeship?
I'm trying to
Yeah,
make it that.
okay.
We don't, the college is not a requirement for you to start the apprenticeship program. Like I said, the individual that's currently apprenticing with us, maybe a couple of years of community college.
No, I didn't mean to be an apprenticeship. I meant to obtain employment.
I would hire somebody that doesn't have a 4-year degree that has a apprenticeship.
You would, but you understand it. I'm saying in general, is the job force moving to that direction?
It is.
Okay.
Nationwide, it is moving more towards having apprenticeship in non-traditional fields. U.S. Department of Labor has really put a push behind with apprenticeship being another model. Will it take over? No. It's just another way of getting trained. To your point before, too, with the standards, so Office of Apprenticeship, U.S. Department of Labor, actually has each occupation that's registered with an apprenticeable occupation has an outline that we provide to the business to say, okay, these are the core competencies, these are the core classes that should be involved within this given occupation. That employer can go and look and say, yep, we do this, but we tweak this one and we do it this way a little differently. It still is the same because each welder or each CNA or each help desk technician has basic roles and responsibilities that are same from company to company. So then that's when you get the National Occupational Credential at the end, because you stick to the outline about 75% of the time. And then that business kind of creates that 25% of what their specialty is. Does that make more sense?
I'd like to piggyback on that a little bit.
We'll get to you in just 1 second. I know you have a question.
To add on to that, the apprenticeship sponsors today who have the people that have apprenticeship programs, and they have someone coming in that has been participating in an apprenticeship program at another company or place. They have the full right to look at that and either take what they have earned as credit, as what they've learned through their curriculum or whatever, but and put that toward their apprenticeship at their location. They can turn it completely down. The unions who started apprenticeship programs back in the 30s, they have a very strict and very well-rounded standard for the manufacturing standards that they work with on a daily basis. And speaking from experience, they're not really willing to share that. But I have seen them change throughout the last 3 or 4 years from, no, we're going to start that person 100% at the bottom and move way up. They start, well, I'll give you a Steve Shurey, guy who received Job Honor Award. He finished his program, got out, started at Winger Corporation down in Ottumwa. They started him out low, quickly learned how fast he did it. Within 3 months, they gave him his full journeyman card. So they gave him full credit for it. And like Amy said, it's not to replace college by any way, shape, or form. But an apprenticeship program is an earn as you learn. So when you're done with that program, that individual's done with that program, they owe $0. So it's another avenue for people to be able to get that skill level higher and not owe a penny at the end of it.
We're gonna go over there.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar like it's happening right now in the nurses with the nurses. Like in the hospital, they train all the nurses right now, you know. So they provide kind of the opportunity to learn the skills there, and then, I mean, each hospital can decide how they're gonna retain the employee. But I have another question about like what you were saying. So when they have somebody going to start this program, do you make some kind of like a basic skill? You know, what about he wants to be an electrician or IT, but he doesn't have real skills? So do you help them kind of decide, kind of counsel apart or something?
So we hire for personality, really. Are they going to be a good fit into the company culture, and how are they going to treat clients, right? What is their customer service skill? Really, other than basic reading and math skills, there's really no requirement. We actually train the actual skills into the individual. So the apprentice that's currently going through the program had 0 experience in the IT field. Literally, he worked as a customer service rep at Hy-Vee, at a Hy-Vee store. All that it required was for him to be interested in computers and find the work interesting and be a friendly individual that can work with our customers. And he met all that criteria. And 2 years in, he is actually finishing projects on his own. Last week, he did a server installation and replacement for a client of ours. His mentor didn't have to guide him, nor was I involved. He just started and finished, and yesterday we just wrapped up the project on his own, and that's just 2 years into the program. So.
We're going to shift a little bit because we're going to actually have Jerry talk, but since you raised a good point about the skills, I'm going to have Lacey explain a little bit about quality career apprenticeship and how those skills come into play.
We're gonna switch it up. Is that what you're doing? Or just to go over? Okay. So quality career apprenticeship is building your pipeline of workers, getting them ready prior to them getting into the registered apprenticeship. So with the quality career apprenticeship, I've been working with Jeff at the Waterloo schools, and what skills those students are learning now, or how we can get them into the manufacturing world or healthcare world or whatever area that they're looking to go into. So that's one way we're doing it, you know, through soft skills. Are they getting their soft skills? Are they getting some college course classes they're already taking that transfer into that? So, should I? You want me to switch? Okay. What enticed you to start looking at quality career apprenticeships in the Waterloo Community School District?
Well, of course, you've heard in there mentioned multiple times that we have a unique niche program at Waterloo called the Waterloo Career Center. It is a program, basically a career and technical education program that has right now 9 distinct pathway programs that it offers. We're going to expand it to 14 next year. Eventually we'll get up to 18 or 19 distinct pathway programs. And honestly, these programs are siloed per se because one of the great things about it, there are concurrent classes with Hawkeye Community College, who's been a tremendous partner, from Jerry to Tom to Dave to Tony's over here. You know, Hawkeye Community College has allowed us to take our program to a level where students are not only earning high school credit, they're also earning concurrent college credit, and now we're also able to offer core credit to our students that are coming out there for a portion of their day. With that said, because of the Hawkeye course sequence that we've been offered, our students, if they do stay in a siloed approach to that program, have the opportunity to actually get to a certain point where they get to the point potentially by the 3rd semester where they have gotten through almost all of their programs or the courses that we are allowed to offer by Hawkeye. So for us, the natural next step was, before we hand them off after they graduate to Hawkeye or to whatever, it could be industry, it could be a 4-year college, to wherever they decide to go in their career, we wanted to allow them the opportunity to take a deeper dive into that field. So I started talking to Lacey, and we started talking about the pre-quality apprenticeship program, which actually could become a 4th semester sequence where they would actually go out into that field or that industry and actually get those skills. They are already carrying the college skills and credit that they've earned. So let's say, for example, we have 9 programs, we're going to have 14. Skills trade area, we're looking at electrical, plumbing, advanced manufacturing, sustainable construction. Right there are 4 areas that students can get out and actually start doing, earning money, and really figuring out if this is something I want to do. They've done the book work. They've obviously, in those courses, they get a lot of extra stuff on top of book work, but it's really a deeper dive into actually doing it out in the real workforce before they decide what their next step is, which may be the apprenticeship, it may be Hawkeye Community College, it may be a 4-year college, but it gives them a feel of if that's the right move there.
And what other occupations are you looking at?
So, like I said, we have 14 distinct programs coming into place next year, eventually 19. The ones we're really focused on right now would be like our advanced manufacturing, our sustainable construction, which is carpentry. Next year to be electrical and plumbing. But then in the other areas, we're also looking at the nursing or the health career field as being part of this pathway program. IT, digital are all part of this. The business world eventually would be great. And then we also have an early childhood education program that we eventually want to get our students to the point where they're in their CDA, where then they can jump out into Sarah's world and potentially be doing a pre-quality apprenticeship with them. So right now the focus is on the ones that are being offered, but ultimately we would love all of our 18 or 19 programs to have the opportunity for students to actually experience for life what they would be doing if they went into that career field, and actually get paid for it and get credit for it, and just give them a real feel or sense of what it really means to be in those areas. And my last thing, you don't even have to ask, my only last comment would be to both industries out here, that I would encourage anybody that's in industry or business out here to buy into this model and to really embrace it, and to actually sign on to be, whether it's an apprenticeship or a pre-apprenticeship, quality pre-apprenticeship program, because the only way we're going to get our students out into those fields to discover if they want to do it, is if they can have that opportunity. So I would encourage businesses to embrace this opportunity, to sign on and to become partners with us. I would also tell other districts, we have a career center. It doesn't matter if you're a large district or small district, you can do this. If you offer any of those niche programs, you can set up pre-apprenticeships with business and industry to get your students involved in them also. So again, the biggest thing I can say is I would encourage everybody to buy into this model, because truly I think it's the best model moving forward for students to at least discover, do I want to go right to work, do I want to go to a community college, do I want to go into a career, do I want to go to a four-year school. You know, you don't know what you don't know, and this really takes it to the next level with this.
Yeah, currently it's a chicken and the egg problem, right? We want more people to be interested in the IT apprenticeship field, but there is no IT apprenticeships right now in great numbers, so we're working on gathering interest and making sure that people are actually aware of opportunities out there.
So we're gonna, I'm gonna switch up the role a little bit. Next, we're gonna talk about intermediaries. So Hawkeye Community College is an intermediary. A lot of this we can talk about is the business itself that's holding the standards or has the registered apprenticeship program. The other option is also as Hawkeye Community Colleges is an intermediary. So, Jerry, tell us what it means to be an intermediary sponsor and how it's different than the registered apprenticeship sponsor.
Yeah, so you've been hearing about apprenticeship standards, which is really another word for guidelines or rules. You know, the standards are about 20 to 30 pages, ours are anyway. Kind of lays out what the responsibilities of the employer are, what the responsibilities of the apprentice. Ours lays out the responsibilities of Hawkeye. So we are intermediary because we actually don't employ any apprentices. We hold our standards, but we don't employ the apprentices. The apprentices, of course, are employed by different businesses. So really, it boils down to a convenience thing. I can sign up a business today, a one-page participation agreement that's saying they're going to participate with our standards. They don't have to deal with the Department of Labor. I do all the registration of the apprentices, that sort of thing. But the apprentices are still employed by the business. You know, they follow that business rules. Business sets the wage and that sort of thing. So it boils down to convenience, really. So it's a lot easier. There's nobody from the Department of Labor here, but there's 3 of them that cover the whole state when it comes to the office apprenticeship, and they're busy. They don't have a support staff, and I have a good relationship with Jim. Ours, you know, I'm not saying anything bad about him, but it's easier to get a hold of me.
So, and those 4 programs that you guys have are the carpentry, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and then also Brenda's also here in the room with us, but they just currently signed on to their CNA registered apprenticeship program. So now Hawkeye's also diving into the healthcare field and how we can train those people. So, Jerry, what benefits does a company receive signing up under you?
Well, you know, I've talked a little bit about the convenience. You know, the other thing is, you know, cost, where like I said, we had like 80 different businesses. We put people from different businesses into the same classroom, which of course lowers the cost of the training. So between convenience and cost, I'd say those are the 2 big things. And then of course the convenience of being able to work with somebody local.
And then what messages or challenge would you like to provide to others in our audience today?
I think, you know, we heard some of it this morning. You know, I get into meetings a lot with HR people who say, yeah, we're having trouble finding qualified people. And then you hear about, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years, the number of people that are going to be retired. And we've talked to businesses, you know, that say, you know, a while back we were at a business that has about a 30-person maintenance staff, and 60% of them are 55 and older, and they have no plan to how are we going to do that in 5 years, or how are we going to do that in 10 years when, you know, right now when the unemployment rate is so low, everybody's working. How are we going to replace them people? Well, you know, the apprenticeship program is a great model. But you got to start now. You can't start when all of a sudden you need that person. you got to start getting them in your pipeline. So the other challenge I think that businesses don't seem to grasp right now is, you know, investing that money in that person. I think they struggle with that. You know, I know all businesses are that bottom line. You know, that's what they look at, but we've all heard that. Most of you, I think, probably have heard that saying where the financial officer says, what are we going to do if we invest money in these people and they leave? And the company president says, well, what are we going to do if we don't invest money in them and they stay? So, you know, I think we need to start thinking, you know, as businesses, we need to start investing money into our employees. I have companies that have come into our programs, and within 2 years they start talking about how it's helped them recruit people and it's helped them retain people. So I'm sold on apprenticeships. I think it's the way to go. And actually, you know, the apprenticeship model is hundreds of years old. So if we're still talking about it today, there's got to be something there.
My name is Alba. I'm from CAPS. As a program from Cedar Falls High School, similar to what you described. So we teach our students to have soft skills and put them ready for like a professional environment life. So we have 4 strands. We have the business and communication, we have engineering and technology, we have education, and now the newest one is medical and health services. So I have a question, how you deal with the part okay, I've been facing when I asking for my associates, that's how we call them. If I would knock doors and say, okay, I want like a job shadowing and I call pre-residency for them, I can have some hours of mentoring, and it's kind of big issue because I don't know if it's in all industries, but in the health services, it's kind of hard to find somebody who can engage, in this case, with my students as a mentor. You know, that's kind of the only thing that I don't know what experience you have for that part, for the companies, if you are going to ask to mentor. It's hard, or?
So does Mark want to take that question?
Well, I think part of the thing you can do is work through your intermediaries. They're the ones that have the business contacts. For example, like Career Connections, Erin Swanka has multiple businesses and organizations that she works with. The other thing is, part of our Waterloo Career Centers, we actually have distinct business partners, anywhere from 3 to 7 partners. Now, the key is to get our partners to buy into the apprenticeship model and then sign on to it. And that's where, like, Lacey and I will talk and say, hey, Lacey, we have these partners, and like she's told me already, like I know 2 or 3 of them have actually signed on in advanced manufacturing where we can use them as part of our thing there. So our business partners are great. The intermediaries are a must, and then just making sure you are connecting those dots.
I would say
if there's a way, if there's a will, there's a way to get your kids into those programs.
Yeah, but I'm just kind of like, that's the real world here, because I have been facing that. Like, for example, for health and medical service, you know, have somebody to be responsible to have mentor hours, you know.
Yeah, I would say that is the #1 problem right now, even for the IT field. We're the one company that I know in Des Moines doing it, and Des Moines is a large city. We are working on convincing other businesses to start offering it as well. So it's just going to require a lot of legwork, and I think it's going to take a while for a bunch of businesses to come around and see examples of successful apprenticeships from companies to just general different even industries. So one thing that we had in mind when we started at Grain Consulting is we're a small company. If we can show that it can work and that we can do it on such a small scale, and we can show all the benefits over the next few years, our hope is that other IT companies first are going to see that and start adopting it. But then second, other companies in other industries will take a cue and start doing the same thing, like the medical field and such. I mean, one benefit that we've seen, the individual that we have right now, apprenticing with us, his friends are actually reaching out and asking about the apprenticeship and finding out. So it's something that will definitely take time to spread, but hopefully, as we serve as an example, things are just going to start growing more and more. So.
Brenda has something.
Sorry. As for healthcare, my background is healthcare, and I'm from Hawkeye Community College. I'm the health coordinator. My background is a nurse, and so the biggest terminology is journeyman. People in healthcare don't understand that, and what I have found and what I'm starting to do is change that terminology. In healthcare, we consider it a career ladder. They move up the career ladder. And so I'm like, that is no different than the journeyman. You are working up the levels. And so my approach with this in getting the CMA apprenticeship is I had to change my thought process as healthcare to something different. And so once I understood apprenticeship, now I can explain it to other healthcare providers out there that it's the same thing as a career ladder. You're just moving them up in your company through this career ladder, basically as an apprenticeship. So that's, for healthcare, the big thing is, for me, in explaining to people getting out there, is the terminology is the same but different.
I would agree. There's a component to branding of this as well. I don't know, apprenticeships as a term have I feel like a negative connotation here in the United States. Which I'm not quite understanding completely, but parents usually aren't excited for their kids to go down an apprenticeship track. I don't have an answer for that. I'm hoping that as the track matures, together we're going to figure out how to brand it properly, but it is definitely a barrier.
Well, I was going to say, I'm just going to reiterate what Jerry said, because I think he nailed it right on the head, that this model is so important because so much of our workforce is going to retire, and if we don't get out front of this, what's going to happen in 5 years is we're going to have, with such a low unemployment rate, if we don't have skilled people ready to jump into these positions, we're going to be behind. I mean, we're going to be in trouble because we need to get businesses on board now, be proactive, and then start getting students to pre-apprenticeships, to apprenticeships, to actually working up the career ladder or the journeyman to the artisan level. Because if we don't do that, what's going to happen is we're going to have this huge glut of skilled workers, and it's going to hurt our economy as a nation. I mean, so Jerry nailed it when he says we have to be proactive instead of being reactive. What are we going to do in 5 years?
I do want to add one little thing to that. About the mentor you talked about, the misconception of journeyman. You have to have a journeyman, someone who's had their apprenticeship journeyman card has to be that mentor. That is a very misperception. You do not have to have that. A person, a third year into it, can teach someone who is someone who's just starting out in the first year. U.S. Department of Labor states that as long as the journeyman in the field, or we'll call mentor, what we've changed our terminology to as mentor, is higher skilled than the person that they're training. That's what you need. So don't get the misperception
Yes,
that,
and your
oh my gosh,
mentor,
as a
they call
company,
mentor.
I have to hire someone that has their journeyman card. Not true.
And the business actually is the one that decides who that mentor is. So it's based upon their perception of who is the most skilled in that area that they want that individual to learn from.
I have a question. So, one of the things about apprenticeships, which I believe in, but is they're employees of your company. So, intellectual property, you don't have to worry about that necessarily because they're an employee, right?
Correct.
See, I think that's one of the concerns sometimes businesses have is this apprenticeship is too much like an internship or a job shadow. It's not, they're employees.
They're
right?
full employees. They get benefits, salary, health benefits, vacation days. They're
All
an
from
employee.
day one.
Right.
So kind of from the panel, my other question is, has anybody had an example where a company or this partnership has gone from pre-apprentice apprenticeship all the way to employee assistance program for tuition or mission and those type of things as as people move through these stages of their lives and ladders, kind of like nursing, you talk about, I'm a CNA, LPN, RN, BSN. I'm sure there's 6 others.
So there are 12 different quality career apprenticeship programs across the state of Iowa. And Central Campus in Des Moines has been around the longest, and they have seen somebody that has gone from a quality career apprenticeship program to a registered apprenticeship program and completed and is now a skilled worker. All the other quality career apprenticeship programs are so young because they're less than 2 years old that we haven't seen that transition yet. And we haven't seen the transition in the non-traditional skills. So the Central Campus example is more carpentry and automobile are the two different, auto tech are the two occupations that we've seen that progression through all the way to the end. But we're hoping with Waterloo coming on board, we have Boone, Spencer, Waukee, Muscatine,
Waverly, Michelle, we just started.
Waverly, just
Got their
one.
program up and going.
There's a
Advanced manufacturing, that one.
there's a lot of options out there that we are through the state expansion grant that Iowa Workforce Development received 2 years ago. We are looking at how many quality career apprentices actually go through and come into the registered apprenticeship program and then are completed. So we're looking at that data as well.
I was looking at the DOL data on the number of registered apprenticeship sponsoring organizations nationally and in Iowa. And it's interesting to see in Iowa that there's just shy of about 1,300 sponsoring registered apprenticeship organizations, and in Cedar Falls and Waterloo there's 32. So kind of cue us up, and knowing that convenings like this are step one in the process, how do communities work together? What recommendations would you make for our time together today to build out the capacity, the scalability of registered apprenticeships toward statewide attainment goals for credentials?
Find companies that you can convince into offering an apprenticeship spot. I feel like that's number one step right now, is making sure that there is apprenticeships available for people to get into, and then with the help of those companies, promote it to potential students.
Let me add one more element to the question, and that is in Cedar Falls, Waterloo's industry profile, there's healthcare representation, there's Hawkeye's a good partner.
Yep.
I know UNI does act as an intermediary in some things, but it trends more to the manufacturing, plumbing, construction side. So in addition to finding those types of companies that have evolved out of a trajectory of that industry's history, how can we reach out and find new businesses, new industries that haven't typically been represented as well toward that effort?
I guess I can speak on the healthcare part. Healthcare is a little late to the bus because it is so, the state of Iowa is so regulated with regulations and licensures that, like Alaska is very progressive with recognizing LPN and RN apprenticeships. They are, because of the workforce up there is such demand. Well, the rest of us are now just seeing the crisis mode. It's coming up with healthcare. And so, Iowa just is, like I said, we just got the CNA apprenticeship for Hawkeye Community College, and the grasp that legislator has had and the governing bodies have had on it has been so tight that they're realizing the shortage is so great that we have to do something different.
Okay.
And so for healthcare, they're starting to release a little bit of that control.
I would even echo that. I know we have 2 economic development directors in the room talking in sectors or the industries together, convening different companies that are hiring the same types of employees or the same industries, coming together and saying how can we get people more interested in our area? How can we get students? How can we connect with the schools? How can we connect with the colleges? bringing all the partners together within an industry to talk about how we can grow that industry, and having Hawkeye at the table, having you and I at the table, having the school districts at the table, because you're looking at your pipeline, you're looking at who's going to be able to create the coursework, and then you as the employer bringing in and saying, how can we bring up the on-the-job learning capacity?
So from personal experience, the way I'm doing it in Des Moines is through the Technology Association of Iowa. So we're a member. They're the ones that helped me actually create and register the standards with the Department of Labor. And they have a bunch of technology companies that are members. I'm not going to those individual companies as Igor, the owner of Grand Consulting. It's the Technology Association of Iowa that I'm asking their help with to promote and market that to companies in my field. And then I will be serving as a pitchman, sales, version of, hey, look, we're doing it this way. I think you should do it as well. So I've got people enlisted to help me spread the word. So
I think we, at the Iowa Works office, we go and talk about any business we go into, we're talking about it. And I can say advanced manufacturing and healthcare, it's taken us a year for them to change that mindset. So now I can say we're in the advanced manufacturing realm here in the Cedar Valley, but it took them a year because a year ago I went in and they said no. Why? So, and now they're like, let's do it, and we're moving forward. I think healthcare was the same way. So it's just expanding, it's getting there, and it's getting everybody to think a little bit differently about how am I going to train my workers, how am I going to pick people. So there's not an area that we haven't touched. When we go and talk about it, we talk about it to anybody that's going to listen to us. So it comes around. It does come around. So.
Can I encourage you to visit your Rotary, your Lions, any of those? Usually those are the business owners that you need to get a hold of. I think in your communities they'd be strong too.
I was just gonna put in a plug for the community college. Apprenticeship is right in our wheelhouse, whether you want a 2-year degree as your classroom training, or, I work on the business and industry side of our college where, we don't have to have our curriculum approved by the Department of Labor. We can set up a class just for your business if that's what you want. So a community college would be great.
I'll add a little bit to that. I just think 100% communication, 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 education, education, education. If we can educate the students, they educate the parents, we start down there, and we teach our community what a registered apprenticeship is. Once they realize what it is, they realize there's another option. One other thing I want to add, Michelle Feltus over here and her husband Dean is starting One City here in the Cedar Valley. It's a nonprofit organization. 4 things that they're going to focus on is connect, prevent, equip, and restore for returning citizens and kids in poverty. So connect. They're connecting with the companies, they're connecting with nonprofit organizations, they're connecting with agencies, so churches. There, right there, and they've got their nonprofit organization set up right there as a go-to to help connect and educate.
We want to thank you so much for coming in today, and if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to Lacey or myself or any of our panelists. But we want to say thank you for coming in and sharing an hour with us today.